40 million dead, 1/10 of the world's population, erased, cities reduced to ash, empires that had stood for centuries, obliterated in weeks, rivers running red with blood for days. And at the center of this apocalypse stood one man, a man who began life as an abandoned orphan and ended it as the ruler of the largest contiguous empire in human history. Tonight, we ride into the storm that was Genghis Khan, the man who didn't just conquer the world. He rewrote the very rules of warfare, diplomacy, and terror. This is not the story of a hero. This is the story of how one man's genius and brutality changed the world forever. To understand the Conqueror, you must first understand the abandoned child who survived against impossible odds. 1162. The Mongolian steppes, a frozen wasteland in winter, a scorching desert in summer. A place where only the strongest survive and weakness means death. A boy is born. His name is Temujin. He comes into the world clutching a blood clot in his fist, a sign, the shamans say, that he will be a great warrior. But fate has other plans first. When Temujin is 9 years old, his father is poisoned by a rival tribe. The boy's entire clan abandons his family, leaving them to starve on the steppes. His mother is forced to dig for roots and catch fish with her bare hands to keep her children alive. This is where most stories would end. A widow and her children, abandoned in one of the harshest environments on Earth. They should have died. Instead, something else happens. Temujin survives. And in surviving, he learns lessons that will shape the future of the world. He learns that tribal loyalty is worthless, that traditional hierarchies mean nothing, that survival belongs not to the nobly born, but to the ruthless and the clever. When his half-brother tries to steal food from the family, young Temujin doesn't argue or appeal to tradition. He shoots him with an arrow. His first kill, his first lesson in absolute pragmatism. On the Mongolian steppes, you either adapt or you die. Temujin adapts. By his 20s, Temujin has clawed his way from abandoned orphan to minor tribal leader. But the steppes are fragmenting. Dozens of tribes constantly warring, betraying, destroying each other in an endless cycle of violence. Temujin sees something no one else sees. This chaos is weakness. A unified Mongolia would be unstoppable. But unification requires something the Mongols have never had. A leader willing to break every tradition, every rule, every sacred custom if it serves the greater purpose. In 1206, after decades of calculated warfare and brilliant alliance building, Temujin achieves the impossible. He unites the Mongolian tribes under a single banner. They grant him a new name, Genghis Khan, universal ruler. But here's what makes Genghis Khan truly revolutionary. He doesn't just unite the tribes through conquest. He reimagines the entire social structure. Merit replaces birthright. A shepherd can become a general if he proves his worth. Loyalty to the Khan replaces loyalty to tribe. Religious tolerance becomes law. You can worship any god as long as you obey the Khan. He creates the first international postal system, establishes laws protecting merchants and travelers, promotes literacy and learning. In many ways, Genghis Khan is more progressive than the civilized empires he's about to destroy. But there's a darker side to this social revolution, a side that will turn the steppes red with blood. Because Genghis Khan also establishes a new rule for warfare: total submission or total annihilation. There is no middle ground. Surrender immediately and live. Resist, and every man, woman, and child will be slaughtered as a warning to others. This isn't cruelty for cruelty's sake. This is psychological warfare elevated to an art form. 1219. The Khwarezmian Empire, one of the most powerful states in Central Asia, makes a fatal mistake. They execute Mongolian merchants and ambassadors, believing the distant Khan is too weak to respond. They are catastrophically wrong. Genghis Khan doesn't just invade, he unleashes an apocalypse. The Mongol army is not like anything the world has seen. They don't march, They flow like water, covering 60 miles a day on horseback. They don't siege cities, they bypass them, circle back, cut supply lines, and wait. Each Mongol warrior carries 3 horses, switching between them to maintain speed. They can ride for days without stopping, sleeping in the saddle, eating dried meat and drinking mare's milk. They are living weapons, trained from childhood. But it's not just military skill that makes the Mongols unstoppable. It's calculated terror. When the city of Otrar, where the merchants were killed, finally falls, Genghis Khan has its governor executed by pouring molten silver into his eyes and ears. The message spreads faster than the Mongol army itself. The city of Urgench resists. The Mongols divert an entire river to flood it. Survivors are systematically executed. It takes 12 days to kill them all. The city of Nashapur kills a Mongol general in battle. Genghis Khan's daughter-in-law personally oversees its destruction. Every living thing is slaughtered. Humans, dogs, cats, even rats. The city was literally erased from existence. Pyramids of severed heads are built as monuments to Mongol vengeance. But here's the genius of Genghis Khan's terror. He always leaves witnesses. Survivors are deliberately allowed to flee to the next city, spreading stories of Mongolian brutality. By the time the Mongol army arrives at the next target, the city is paralyzed with fear. Many surrender without a fight. The Mongols barely need to fight because their reputation does the work for them. This is warfare as psychological operation. Terror as a force multiplier. The numbers are almost incomprehensible. The population of Persia before the Mongol invasion, 2.5 million, after 250,000. The Khwarezmian Empire, one of the jewels of Islamic civilization, is obliterated so completely that it never recovers. Libraries containing thousands of years of accumulated knowledge are burned. Irrigation systems that had sustained millions are destroyed. Cities that were centers of learning and culture are reduced to mass graves. China suffers even worse. The Jin dynasty loses nearly 40 million people, partly through warfare, partly through disease and starvation following Mongol conquest. The population of northern China crashes and won't recover for generations. This is not just conquest. This is civilizational destruction on a scale the world has never witnessed. The Mongols developed systematic methods for depopulation. After capturing a city, they force the inhabitants into the countryside, then methodically execute them in groups, counting the dead to ensure no one escapes. Agricultural lands are deliberately devastated, transforming farmland into pasture for Mongol horses. Urban populations are massacred, their cities left as empty ruins. Some historians would argue the Mongol invasions changed the climate. So many people died, so much farmland was abandoned, that forests regrew and absorbed enough carbon to cause a mini ice age. Genghis Khan didn't just change history, he changed the planet. But here's where Genghis Khan becomes truly fascinating and deeply disturbing. Because alongside all this destruction, he's also building something unprecedented. The Mongol Empire becomes the most religiously tolerant state in the medieval world. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and shamans all serve in the Khan's court. Religious persecution is forbidden by law. The Silk Road, which had been fragmented and dangerous for centuries, becomes safe under Mongol protection. A merchant can travel from Europe to China without fear of robbery or harassment. Trade flourishes like never before. Genghis Khan establishes a legal code, the Yasa, that applies equally to everyone. Aristocrats and commoners face the same laws. Women have property rights unprecedented in the medieval world. Meritocracy becomes the foundation of government. He is personally illiterate, but recognizes the power of literacy. He orders the creation of a written Mongolian language and promotes education throughout his empire. The man who destroys entire civilizations also creates the largest zone of peace and prosperity the world has ever seen, the Pax Mongolica. So which is the real Genghis Khan? The genocidal conqueror or the enlightened empire builder? The terrifying answer is both, simultaneously. Genghis Khan understood something that makes him uniquely dangerous, that destruction and creation are not opposites but tools. He destroyed only what stood in the way of his vision. Everything else he incorporated. If you submitted, you became part of the greatest empire on earth, protected, prosperous, free to worship as you chose. If you resisted, you were annihilated as an example. It's pragmatism elevated to a philosophy, morality replaced by pure, calculated utility. 1227. Genghis Khan is 65 years old and still campaigning, still conquering. The man who spent his life on horseback will die on horseback, leading yet another invasion. His death is shrouded in mystery. Some say he fell from his horse. Others claim he was wounded in battle. Some sources suggest he was assassinated by a captured princess. The truth is lost to history, deliberately obscured by the Mongols themselves. What we do know, he orders his death kept secret until the campaign is complete. His body is returned to Mongolia, and everyone who witnesses the funeral procession is killed to keep the burial site secret. To this day, no one knows where Genghis Khan is buried. Even in death, he maintains absolute control over his image. The empire he built will continue to expand for another 50 years, eventually controlling territory from Korea to Hungary, from Siberia to India. One empire, 1/5 of the world's land area, all traced back to an abandoned orphan on the Mongolian steppes. Genghis Khan's genetic legacy is extraordinary. DNA studies suggest 16 million people today are his direct descendants. His political legacy is equally vast. He created structures of governance and trade that shaped the modern world. But his moral legacy remains the most contested question in history. In Mongolia today, he is a national hero. His face appears on currency. Statues tower over the steppes. He is celebrated as the founder of the nation, the man who united a fractured people and made them great. In the lands he conquered, he is remembered as an apocalypse, the destroyer of civilizations, the killer of millions. Both perspectives are true. Both are incomplete. Genghis Khan forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. Can military genius and administrative brilliance excuse genocide? Can the creation of a tolerant, prosperous empire justify the mountains of skulls required to build it? Or is this the wrong question entirely? Perhaps Genghis Khan shouldn't be judged by modern moral standards. Perhaps he should be understood as a force of nature, neither good nor evil, but simply inevitable. A man shaped by the brutal reality of the steppes, who then reshaped the world according to those same brutal principles. The Mongol Empire eventually fragmented and fell. But the world Genghis Khan created, a world of interconnected trade, cultural exchange, and systematic warfare, that world never ended. We still live in it. So I leave you with this. Was Genghis Khan the greatest military genius in history, or humanity's most successful mass murderer, visionary leader, or apocalyptic destroyer? Perhaps he was all of these things. Perhaps that's what makes him so terrifying. What do you think? Hero, villain, or something beyond human judgment? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to explore more dark chapters of history, subscribe and join us on this journey into the past.